Hello, Lance Tarchioni, technical agronomist with DeKalb and Asgrow, here with you on our Ask the Agronomist extra that we've been calling the Agronomist Ask. And since we're here at AgTech this week in St. Louis, Missouri, we've got a lot of people here that we can collaborate and talk to, a lot of expertise, a lot of knowledge. AgTech is kind of like the national sales meeting for agronomy nerds, as I jokingly say. And there's a lot of technical expertise in the room. Being joined by some of that here with Mr. Ty Barten, and I'll let Ty introduce himself and talk about his role within Bayer and what has brought him here to AgTech this week.
Yeah, no, thanks for the invitation. I guess just a little history to start. I grew up on a farm, central Kansas, so farming. Well, you could call it farming, but mostly it was a lot of praying for rain. That's what I remember the most. But always had a kind of this itch to understand what made plants tick. So I had two younger brothers, and they had a passion for the animal side of the business and took over the ranch and everything that way. And I had no desire to be married to a bunch of cows and sows for the rest of my life. So I chose plants. I went to Kansas State University, got a bachelor's and a master's degree there. From there, was in DeKalb, the old DeKalb Ag building there with Monsanto. I worked in production research for the manufacturing group for 3 years. Kind of learned the ropes, learned the old school mom and pop DeKalb, and then the new Monsanto ways, and then moved out to Nebraska, closer to home, and joined the breeding team there. So I led the Stromsburg, Nebraska research station. I was the testing lead there. We basically did corn testing and regulated testing for the eastern half of the state of Nebraska. And then I got the opportunity to go and work on my PhD. So we pick up the family, and we moved to Huxley, set up shop in Huxley in Iowa. We went to Iowa State, worked on my PhD. Kind of as a side hustle, started a breeding program. I had a manager that I think he just got tired of me asking questions, and it was easier just to give me a little nursery. So when I got done with my PhD work, I started a breeding program full time, and did that for 13 years before this last April became the RAL for Midwest North, which is basically Iowa.
Cool.
That was my 2 minutes or less path.
Yeah, no, that's great. Several things you mentioned there clicked with me. I've got two personal connections to Kansas. My mom was actually born in Hugoton.
Okay, yeah.
And my middle daughter, is at Manhattan now.
Awesome.
Work with Rachel Willis, who's a well-known K-State person. Yep. So I've got a few Kansas connections myself, and understand that all you need there is a rain every now and then, and would make things a lot better.
Makes things easier. Yep.
So I guess tell us about your transition from breeding into agronomy, and I guess share a little bit too. I mean, I've personally known a lot of breeders who have either transitioned into other roles or retired or moved on to other things, and sometimes I feel a little bit sad that we're losing too many people from the breeding program. Yep. So talk to us about how breeding has changed over the years, and why you're confident that we've got a real bright future from a corn germplasm standpoint, in spite of the fact that things change and people move on.
Yeah, no. So we're going to have to decouple my personal story from your breeding question in general. So I took the opportunity to grow my career. So I spent 13 years working on a product concept, right, and really kind of took it from the first nurseries through all of the initial screening and testing, committed to making a pipeline out of it, started traits, and we finally got to the point where it's time to launch this thing and get it, let it go out and play and see if it can, be a good product for folks. So the opportunity came to try and get into the commercial organization to where I could go and do that, but also work within a team of just the best agronomists, like top-notch professional agronomists, and so who wouldn't jump at that opportunity.
Yeah.
So my personal story is kind of just worked out. Like There's no plan for that.
Right.
That was on no
Right.
development plan, right? It just kind of happened. So, that's my story. But breeding is ever evolving, right? So there's always new techniques, new methodologies, new theories to try and test out and understand how they work. And so where we're going with breeding now is really learning how to leverage all of the genomic and the phenotypic data that we have at our fingertips, and how do we optimize that within an engine that's cranking out, working on the best germplasm in the world. So how that engine runs, how it cranks and spins and turns is always evolving, has been for 100 and however many years. And so where we're at now is kind of a new frontier where, we're taking aspects of animal breeding and kind of some of those theories and how we make that work. Also taking into account, how can we use algorithms and predictive models and all sorts of things that help us understand what our customers really need or what they're looking for in their purchases, what makes that great product. So we're kind of trying to blend all that together and make new hybrids that fit the mold that our customers today need.
Yeah, as an old livestock guy myself, and grew up on a purebred Simmental operation and looking at EPDs and selecting bulls and trying to improve our herd for years. The first time I heard about BLUPs and somebody used the analogy of, well, it's kind of like EPDs for livestock, it kind of hit me like, well, yeah, why, we've got parents and we've got progeny, and you can look at performance of parents and make predictions of how the progeny is going to do, and why hadn't we done that earlier with seed products?
Well, and that's some of what's changed, right? So historically a breeder would know the parents, know the lineage of the lines and kind of what heterotic pool it falls into, and so we would just kind of intuitively know through trial and error, if I cross this to this, I get, I'll get something that will then cross really well to this female pool over here. And so we kept track of that, and we really paid attention to that. So why not leverage all of that information? We know about the parents, we know about the parents of the parents, we know about the parents of the parents of the parents, and we know about the haplotypes, the genes, all that underlying genomic information and how it correlates to performance for every trait, multitude of traits. And so really it's a balancing act. How do you blend and balance all those different data pieces together to get the most robust pipeline that you can? So,
and maybe talk a little bit about from a breeding science standpoint, how does that enable us to achieve genetic gain faster?
Yeah, so not to get too far into the weeds, but genetic gain is really an equation it's a function of heritability of a trait and the selection intensity that you apply on that trait, right? And then you have to divide whatever gain you make for any given trait by time and by error. So we're hopefully, by adding more data, resolving some of that error piece, because we know every year is different, right? So if we can look at 3 years of historical information on a given line, we kind of should be able to better predict how it's going to do. So we're hopefully reducing some of that variance in the data set. The other thing it allows us to do is that time, right? So we're leveraging a lot of under glass. We have a huge greenhouse in Arizona now, and basically there's no more 2 cycles a year, right? We're just spinning as fast as we can go and really driving towards the idealized model. And then as we spin things out of the greenhouse, then they go into the field and we test them the same that we traditionally would. It's just we're not bound to a nursery cycle anymore. We can really cycle through materials much more rapidly. So as long as we maintain heritability and we maintain selection intensity, the bottom of that equation, what we have to divide that gain by, time and variance, is hopefully being reduced, and that should improve basically how we're cycling through our germplasm.
So the breeding program that you helped develop and worked in, you would have been involved in that probably during the era where we focused a lot on Goss's improvement. And being a Western guy, Goss would obviously be extremely important in your marketplace. And I think that's a pretty good success story that we put the power behind that program, focused on solving a problem, and did a pretty good job doing that.
Yep.
You move forward a few years and you move east a little ways, and you got something called tar spot that has the focus on it now. What's your thoughts based on your experience with costs? How easy or difficult is it going to be to address tar spot genetically?
Yeah, so a couple of biggies there. So again, going back to the kind of, if we want to make gain on tar spot tolerance, we have to apply some selection intensity for it. So having a good assay, a good repeatable field study that we can do to call tolerant or not tolerant, that's a big milestone, right? So I think we've made strides both in the greenhouse and in the field to be able to really characterize and understand germplasm better. And then then we can make gain, right? We can make selection for it, and it'll be heritable. And so then it's just about cycle time. I would say I've heard frustration why what's taking so long. It still takes time, right? And I would say also that we're going to only sell good products. And if we can sell really high performing hybrids that might need a fungicide spray to protect that performance, that's probably a better option for what our customers would expect of our products versus selling something that doesn't have the performance but has the stay green that they're looking for.
Well, and agronomically speaking, if I could deliver a grower a hybrid that was immune to tar spot,
sure,
I'm still going to want
yield.
Fungicide and yield for other reasons. So
you
it's
need yield. You still got to set yourself up for protection from northern or gray or southern rust, whatever your pathogen is. But
right.
Right. Total products.
And that's I tell people, I've never been a corn breeder, but I tell growers all the time, if you want us to breed healthy corn that will never fall down, that's not that hard to do if you don't care what it yields.
Correct.
But when you put that that focus on yield, and yield is number one, number two, number three for most guys. That's when it gets difficult to get those defensive characteristics that you're looking for with that offensive yield horsepower that everybody's going to want.
You would be a fantastic breeder, Lance. You got it nailed.
You
nailed it.
I conceptually I understand it. Having the detail-oriented tenacity to keep track of all the stuff that you guys keep track of and understand. I've always admired. I've known several. Don Bockelman and I were pretty good friends when Don was at Monmouth, and I love love listening to corn breeders my age and older talk about their career and just fascinating individuals. I can remember going to meetings with Dick from Minnesota, I believe. Dick was
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin Steffling. Yep. And I always thought, man, that's the guy. We need a class so that guy could talk every corn breeder to train every corn breeder on how to sell corn.
Yeah.
Because he could really talk about products and I've interacted with Gary Stanglin at Williamsburg, and so a lot of the guys that and those guys are all retired now, but that must mean that I've been here a while, I guess, since I know all the retired corn breeders.
There's a whole new crop of corn breeders coming.
Yeah, we've met a few of them recently at some of the meetings, and that's nice about being able to get back together in person and network again, because anybody that's started in the last 3 years, a lot of people have never met each other yet, so which is kind of crazy. But really enjoyed the chance to visit with you and talk about your background and things that make you tick, that you're passionate about, and certainly breeding high yielding, high performing corn hybrids is something that we've got a shared passion in, and our customers do as well. So thanks, Ty, for joining us here on this Ask the Agronomist Extra, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, so the decision-making process on the seed supply is always complicated, and I treat it like a triangle. So you have your supply, your demand, and your quality, and we have to try to balance that all the time. So we do the best we can to forecast how much we think growers will want in the following year, and we also try to grow extra to overcome some quality issues that we run into. But unfortunately, it's not a clean cut for every single product.